We tend to do something on entertainment, and it's a moving sort of target because a couple of years ago we had a guy who was a great Broadway producer. He raised a lot of money in our group, but unfortunately Broadway shut down. It's going to be shut down, I think, till spring. And then we had another guy who had done a lot of debt funding for streaming TV, but now apparently there's so much money out there for streaming TV that he kind of has his own fund that the streaming companies have given him. Nevertheless, there's entertainment, and guys like Hank Laguerre are making it easier for people to get back on the film stage and start filming again. So we've got a great group of panelists, Nikki Walter, Matt Miel, Steve McCarthy, and Arthur Mrzowski. Arthur's out in Silicon Valley. Are you back with us, Arthur?
Yeah, I'm
running
here.
around.
Golden
Fantastic.
retriever he's jealous and decided to at the last minute to interrupt, so I got to run.
No worries. And just a side note, Arthur's son just got funding for his venture by a venture capital fund, I think. Is that right? And
well,
so
money from Peter Thiel on his fintech company. Yeah, $11 million.
There you go. Fantastic. So Arthur's a well-known guy in Silicon Valley. I think he dabbles a little bit in entertainment as well. So Arthur, why don't you lead this discussion, and we'll go from there. We've got about 40 minutes to go. Thanks so much. Looking forward to having some intelligent discussion on entertainment.
Well, thank you, Marty. I just wanted to introduce myself very briefly. I'm basically a technologist based in San Francisco, actually living in Santa Cruz. And pretty much my claim to fame was pretty much witnessing all of the digital delivery of any kind of content back in the 90s. It was a QuickTime 1.0, and working with Apple, Sony, and all of those different folks. And then probably most notably, I helped Netflix with actually their first ever published content. And after that, I've been investing in a lot of companies in the space, along with one of the co-founders of Netflix that went on to do the Redbox, and then he did MoviePass, which is a little bit less famous nowadays. But anyways, I'm not important in here. I think that mostly important people that we have on the panel are the ones that are creating the new medium and then trying to figure it out how to stay in production of creating medium and finding out the methods in which they can deliver that medium to the actual viewers. So let me introduce the people that we'll be talking to, and I'd like to start with Nicola. Nicola is a chief operating officer of the independent production company called Myra Entertainment, based in New York. Prior of that, Nicola was the vice president of wealth management, specializing in art financing, most notably at Alliance Bernstein, JP Morgan, and Jefferies. She lectured extensively on this subject of art and others at NYU, Brooklyn College, and participated in different panel discussions on Appraisers Associations of America, German American Chamber of Commerce, and Phillips Auction House. She is an architect by training. She began her career working at Parrish Hadley Association, Kohn Pedersen Fox, and Zaha Hadid. So Nicola holds the MA in architectural degree from University of Princeton, and then BA in environmental design from Parsons School of Design. And I'll stop there because I'll let Nick to actually talk more about herself, but that kind of gives you the overview of who she is in the background, and I don't want to take too much of the time of talking about who's who, just short introduction. Then we have Stephen McCartney, a partner of Quixotic, and I know that Matthew is going to be upset with me because that's his company, and I'm Polish, and all those words make me like quiver here. So Quixotic endeavors and the lead investor and executive producer in those documentary films. Mr. McCartney is the manager director of KCG Capital Advisors, a family investment office that co-founded in the mid-90s with his late father, John M. Jack McCartney, whose he was formerly known as a co-managing partner and CIO of Lord Abbett with $54 billion of assets under management. And that partnership was established in 1929. With over 40 years of experience on the Wall Street financial services and foundations management areas separately, during the past 15 years, he been award-winning mentor and coach, judge at the 300 NYU Stern Annual Business Plan Competition, where he specializes in the social entrepreneurship track. Okay, so that's a few words about Stephen. And then our star here, Mr. Matthew Mail, film director, and he is the director of, and I will learn that eventually, Quixotic endeavors. And first and foremost, after that, he's a great storyteller. He's been known in the different areas of music composition, publishing, screenwriting, and eventually he became a successful producer and director of critically acclaimed and internationally renowned feature-length documentaries. He's best known for the documentaries Always at the Carlisle in 2018, Harry Benson Shot First, 2016, Scatter My Ashes at Bergdorf, and then recently Alan Pakula, Going for the Truth. I would let, you know, I think I'm going to spend too much time of talking about the great panel. I would just wanted to start kind of getting into discussion because we don't have all that much time to talk about each other. So
you laid it out well.
Anyways, with that, I wanted to start asking Nicola. And the first question that I wanted to ask the panel is, without now theatrical showing during the pandemics, what is the replacement for paying audience?
Thank you, Arthur. And thank you also, Marty, for organizing the conference. It's a pleasure to be here. So let me just clarify a little bit about Myra Entertainment. We are an independent production company, but we operate on a business-to-business model. So we only indirectly reach out to the audience via a distributor. But we do see a huge opportunity, and that opportunity is really coming from the streamers. The streamers are growing globally, and there will be a huge demand in terms of content. And what we have been doing, not only now even more so, but also in the last couple of years, is focusing on content. And we're well positioned to supply that coming demand. Not only are we well positioned to supply that coming demand, but also our offices are in different areas of the world. We are bicontinental. We have an office in London. We have an office in New York. We will be expanding into Asia. So, and among our team members, we speak 6 languages. So again, we are very well positioned and competitive in terms of international content.
Great. Let me switch over then to Matthew. Matthew, right now, how do you make those documentaries happen? I mean, during the COVID-19, not having ability to, I mean, a lot of people here in Los Angeles and they're laid off, right? They're not working. How do you manage?
So, I mean, what's interesting right now in the space is that features in television, which, you know, have been hitting all the headlines as far as the ones that are on hold, you know, no one's really talking about the fact that documentaries necessarily aren't on hold because we, you know, have far less crew. We have no actors in our productions, so there's no worry about if an actor gets sick and there's an issue with insurance and the actor having to come off the production. You know, our crews are 1 to 2, 3 people even, so social distancing is not an issue at all. And if you find the popular, you know, stuff on the streaming during the pandemic, it was the Michael Jordan documentary and, you know, the Tiger King Joe Exotic documentary. So those are the 2 prevailing things people were watching. Not that they weren't watching features or television, of course, but it seems to me like we came off a golden decade of documentaries that just burst on the scene. And then now we're at the advent of a whole new decade, I think, of, you know, content that's being done by smaller productions like documentaries. And I think, quite frankly, nonfiction is kind of taken a step forward because the world is far more interesting than I think even movies can dream up at this point. It's kind of like this amazing thing that's going on. And there's a bit of a competition to get, you know, the proper real estate. And what I mean by that is all these major streamers, which we just talked about, Apple, HBO Max, you know, all the ones entering the space, but also the existing ones, Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, Stars even, they all have major subscribers. And they're all trying to figure out what kind of subscriber growth can we get, what kind of content is going to respond to that. So my job at this point is not to necessarily be a headline chaser and go after stuff that's already happened in the more immediate, but look at an overarching career or overarching brand that has an audience, has a base, and will still have one in a year or two from when the film is completed. So I can tell you one film I'm about to start is on the lyricist Bernie Taupin, who was Elton John's writing partner for years. He was highlighted in Rocket Man. He's kind of that big question mark, the mystery figure behind Elton, but he's an equal player in there. And they have a huge fan base. They have a fan base of millions around the world. So specifically on that film, you can see it doesn't necessarily need a theatrical. You can pop that, you know, just for their fan base as a pay-per-view, as an exclusive on a window, and that can play virtually around the world. And that's a terrific way to get people engaged and to have, you know, a small price to pay for, you know, a Vimeo that zooms around. You can also do a lot of the interviews for that type of film over the computer, over Zoom. And, you know, there's mechanisms to make it not look like there's a laptop talking to you. You know, we have graphics and the ability with the new, you know, systems with editing to make things look amazing. So, you know, all those things combined, a documentary actually is a favorable production in this, you know, downturn. And it's the one thing, the one bright spot, I think, that, you know, entertainment has to, you know, progress. And, you know, it's a matter of the documentarians to take advantage of the time to really, you know, excel and to be the storytellers for the next few years, because I think that's where the most of the content's going to be coming from. And the streamers are wise to that. And I think documentaries right now, they're going for a premium, and they'll continue to be, provided the productions are top line production value. You have, you know, gettable, you know, A-list talent in your films, and it's stuff people want to watch. And right now, music docs are the hottest thing.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. In fact, that's what the currently when you look at the Netflix where what the content is being produced, most of the content right now, the original content is documentaries, which they have a huge following, right? That actually leads us into the topic of the discussions that you know, granted the current situation with how we consume the content, and content seems to be shrinking down with the attention span of the viewers nowadays. So I know the documentary is not necessarily a short subject, but yeah, it's at least a half of subject of the full feature film. So we're slowly getting there, and then I think that comes with the big budgets and the paychecks that are coming in from some of those big streamers such as Netflix, right? So I'd like to also ask a question to Stephen, because you know, you're the one that actually, with your philanthropy and interest in art, you're the one that is writing the checks for a lot of those wonderful films. Now, my question is, are you actually hands-on on it? Are you are you participating in like a daily production scheme of any of the products that you executive produce?
Sure, happy to chat with you on this. Am I coming through?
Yay.
Yes, Steve, we hear you good.
Okay, so the breadth of my role as executive producer includes essentially the investment piece, the business side. But Matt and I and Clive Gershon as our third partner really work hand in glove on all things. Matt is the creative one. He really brings the ideas to fruition. We kick them around. We see how strong they are, what depth they have and legs they have. And then each of us is aware of how we can add value in each place. Matt will give us a cut of the first reel, so to speak, a sizzle reel, and give us some ideas. we'll go back and forth on ideas in terms of helping him craft it, but he's the end and voice on it. Strangely enough, Matt has also, given my relationship with 45 years in the business plus a long reach, we've actually developed some content as a result of contacts that I've had. 2 specific projects were underway. Is one with an old West Wing friend of mine that might relate to 9/11, and another one is an old political friend of mine that might relate to George Magazine. So in terms of hands-on, I'm not behind the camera. That's my skill set. But in terms of looking at ideas, generating ideas, context, thoughts, positioning it, as well as constructive criticism and feedback from Matt and Clive as well, who does that. I think Matt's very talented in that regard. He listens. He's a very straight shooter, and we appreciate it. I got involved 9 years ago. Never been involved in it before. 9 years later, I have to say that again, I appreciate it. Strong ethics, strong work ethics, good values.
Very, very, very nice. Going back to you, Nicola, just out of interest, you're the producer, right, with the
Yes.
Myra production. So how do you address this whole issue of actually the attention span? Like, are you when you go into the production, is that the role of Matthew, or is it the role of yours that decides that I'm going to make it 2 30-minute blocks or 15-minute blocks? How does it work?
So basically, our view is that, yes, there's a very strong trend that the attention span is shrinking, but never underestimate your audience. That's our belief. And we're very, very focused on storytelling. And not only are we focused on storytelling and the quality of our storytelling, we hire the best writers, we work with them, we come up with amazing different stories. But we also and always have been pursuing different formats. So while we do feature films, we also do TV series, and then depending on the content and the story, we determine the length. We also do shorts. So we're really quite nimble in that respect, and I think that's the way to go in this world now, to be as flexible as possible.
So what do you think about those new platforms like a Quibi and say TikTok or whatever? Is that something that you're going to lower yourself? Because I know that your content is kind of.
We actually had a conversation with Quibi, and I think it's fascinating. And as I pointed out before, I think that as you pointed out, the trend is for shorter attention span, but it also always depends on the story and the quality of the story. And if you can hook the audience, and that goes back to storytelling. So, and we feel very strongly about that because we have been working on storytelling for quite some time. And one of the ways how we differ from other outfits as well is that we not only pursue one project at a time. We have several scripts we're working on at the moment, and then we ask opinions. We have consultants. So I think that is really the way to go. But it's definitely, a platform like Quibi is definitely very interesting.
Sounds good. And for you, Matthew, I know that some of your projects you were going in a kind of like small theatrical releases, and but you still have seen your films on a big screen. How does it feel knowing that for at least a year or two you may not be able to generate those premieres of your films and the parties and not being able to go in a traditional way? How do you find yourself in this new world?
I mean, quite frankly, the theatrical model has always been a special thing for me because I always felt like getting my films theatrically released was the benchmark for me. Because if you look at the thousands of films that are made every year, only about 600 films get into theaters, and that includes the small releases and the big releases. So it's almost like kind of measure yourself with, was it theatrically released? Where did I stand with the other people? It's kind of like the graduating class every year of whose films stood out. But in this new world, my opinion on the streaming is that your reach is far more wide-ranging with the audience you can get to. So with the limited theatrical we used to do, it was only New York, LA, Chicago, down in Florida, some cities, maybe Texas, San Francisco. Now it's worldwide and you don't know who's watching. So I'm constantly on Twitter, I'm constantly on Instagram. I'm always looking to see, you know, who's watching, who's posting about it, the feedback, and it comes from all corners of the world now. So that's what's exciting. You know, Netflix boasts about certain numbers, not everything, but certain numbers where they show, you know, people watching into the tens of millions. And that's exciting because theatrically, you're never going to get that level. So the streaming really, you know, allowed people access. And I think as far as the type of content that I'm trying to reimagine now, instead of features, I'm going to the doc series format because I think that was a specific thing that came about and became popular because it is shorter content that you take in bites. And it's like streaming, you know, any kind of episodic television where a doc can spread across even 8 to 10 episodes and be just as effective, even if it's 30-minute bits at a time. I think one specific thing I want to make sure I mention is that I like Quibi, but you know, the pioneers get the arrows, and Jeffrey Katzenberg stepped out and he made something there. What I think, when I saw the slate of what they were doing, it seemed to me like he equated short attention span to, and I don't want to slam him, but to more mindless entertainment. I don't think that's the answer. I think they're going to get more of a foothold if they tell better stories and have something that people can really dig into, rather than some of the content on there that seems like a lot of explosions and a lot of, you know, eye candy stuff that doesn't stay with you. And until they have that water cooler show where they're like, you got to watch this, I think it's gonna, you know, it's not gonna fare too well. But there's gonna be others that are gonna emerge that are gonna learn from what Quibi did and do it far better. So I do think that it's gonna, you know, excel.
In fact, I'm involved. I'm actually an advisor and investor in a company that former T-Dot, what they came up with is essentially a little dongle that you attach into your regular TV, and that dongle allows the one to actually do the theatrical showing at home. The way that it protects itself, it's a non-camera, but it allows to monitor how many eyeballs are in the room. So you buy a ticket just like you were to buy, let's say, for the movie theaters. And then on top of it, it actually protects the content owner from ever stealing the content. Because whenever you turn your phone towards the screen, it'll automatically stop the, it'll stop. I mean, you have to be in the camera mode and show it. So there's things out there that a lot of people are thinking, but there's always this troublesome situation is, okay, we have the technology, we have the Roku people that may be interested in actually integrating that into the regular televisions, but then the content is the king, right? You need to pull in all the Universals and the Paramounts and everybody else in order for that to be functional. So I'm kind of like in the background interested in solving that problem, knowing that AMC's and all the big guys that were, you know, part of our life may not be coming in live for another year or two.
Yeah.
But anyways, enough of my yakking. I'll talk about that technology with you later to see if we can actually make it fit for your needs. But I wanted to go back to Nikki and ask, you know, what are your new plans? What is the new hot project that you're working on right now?
Well, actually, we're very happy to see this morning it was announced that one of the films we co-produced together with Christine Vachon and Pam Koffler is going to have a world premiere at Venice. It's called The World to Come. And it is, the director is a Norwegian newcomer, Mona Fastvold, and it stars Casey Affleck and Vanessa Kirby. And so we're very excited about that project. And then we have a couple of other projects which are going to be released hopefully this year. One of them is a pilot for an animated TV series. And that is called Fairy Tale Forest. It's a collection of fairy tales from around the world. And it features Whoopi Goldberg and Jane Lynch and Mel Brooks and Matt Lucas. It's a combination between an animation and a musical. And so we are very excited about this. And then thirdly, we also have a short which is ready. It's called And So I Begin. and it centers around art and time, and it features an original score by Gabriel Prokofiev, who is the grandson of Sergei Prokofiev. So so we're we're busy.
Well, sounds like you are, but in terms of like your main interest right now, like what is the biggest challenge that you have right now? And I'll ask Matthew. What is the biggest challenge right now for you? I mean, obviously you have a number of different films that you're producing, but is the budget, like raising the money for the film, is the biggest concern, or a bigger concern is the actual reaching out the audience right now, and then having let's say deals with the streaming companies?
So the biggest challenge that I see right now is matching up whatever I'm passionate about idea-wise to what the streamers are looking for as far as their content. And what I hear more than anything from my sales agents and from just in general in the business is each one is looking for subscriber growth, and they all want to have some sort of content that marries to, you know, how are they going to reach into whatever demographic they're looking for, and that's going to generate subscribers. So it's a challenge in that regard, because you have to convince the people that, and the streamers, that whatever you're working on has that ability to do that. So the Bernie Taupin film, which I just mentioned, I have no issue with thinking that's going to be a home run for us, because Elton has a huge amount of fans around the world. That's going to be a no-brainer as far as subscriber growth. However, and he also has a deal with Apple, I believe, and there's other opportunities there. But there's another one I did on Alan Pakula, which has like Meryl Streep and Harrison Ford, Robert Redford, all these people in it. Alan Pakula is a famous filmmaker that did very iconic films, To Kill a Mockingbird, Sophie's Choice. So that one, you have to kind of show it to like the PBSs of the world, or some other, you know, streamer that has a programming content demographic that shoots a little older. Because a lot of those people are, I think, slower to get on the stream. But it's really finding that niche project and matching it up with whatever streamer, you know, wants it most effectively. I'm interested to see actually what happens to Ken Burns's content from PBS. PBS just made a deal with Amazon Prime, it looks like, and they're gonna, you know, it looks like that's gonna be a really big thing for Amazon, because, and I'd love to get numbers on that, because I think a lot of people are so familiar with PBS's work and Ken Burns's work that having it all collected there, I think that's going to be quite a phenomenon taking off over there. And I think that could help to, you know, make Netflix, make Apple, make Starz, and the rest of them, HBO Max, say, hey, they put that up there, look at the numbers. Those are really great, iconic subjects they're working with there. Let's rejigger a little bit. Let's get some stuff in here that, you know, hits an audience, the PBS demographic, which I think is the baby boomers and some of Gen X, but not necessarily millennials.
The only problem that I see with the services like say Amazon Prime and so on, that unfortunately their user interface, like accessing the people. I mean, I'm a technologist, but if I'm buried in the you know, like simple menus and trying to dig into what I really want, like Amazon is not Prime. It's just like their interface. It just scares me. I never find anything interesting. But that kind of leads me to like potential question for Stephen, especially that you are so invested into this world of actually building the films. Wouldn't you want to like create some kind of a platform where some of those films will be preserved? I mean, everybody is actually dying to get the better streaming service, or maybe a channel under Roku or whatever it is that you can actually exhibit your films. Would that be something that you can help out your production?
As well. I mean, we had, if you go to our website, Quicksonic Endeavor, you see the breadth of the iconic brands and iconic individuals we've done. We've done 5 movies so far. We got, and I think that we're searching that our movies tend to skew, as Matt alluded to, educated, affluent audience, quality content, and we have to figure out how that plays in either short form or long form on what platform, and we're trying to discover that. At the same time, we're trying to keep our investors interested, and again, the investor profile is such that we have for the corporate iconic brands, it's probably a larger budget than for the individuals like Harry Benson and Al Pakula. but most cases, angel investing in the $25,000, $50,000 range max. So we're not saying, multi-million-dollar blockbusters. But we are looking at entertain. What, as Matt alluded to, what is the tipping point for certain types of streamers and platforms to say, we want this content because we want that audience specifically. Matt, chime in, please.
No, that's true. And it's, as far as what you're saying about your own individual Roku channel, I do think everything is moving there. I'm surprised actually that the Scorsese's of the world, the Tarantinos of the world haven't done that and bet on their own brand, because if Tarantino, say, started his own Roku and had all movies up there and other stuff that he picks out and curates, I mean, I think that's a home run. I just don't see why people aren't breaking out and doing that. I mean, there's a ton of money at Netflix and they're, entertaining a lot of people over there with the content, but, even top comedians can break out a Roku eventually. I just feel like that's the next wave. But again, it's going to be the initial ones that, die on the vine, but someone will improve on it and it'll become, a terrific thing. But I don't think we're there yet with our library to start that, but we're getting there. I think we're getting really close.
Well, a couple of questions from the audience, and just something that I want to address because of Roku, which is that it seems like you could build a pretty good collection of any type of video libraries for Roku, whether it's business oriented or other type of entertainment. Just that to be feature films, et cetera. But I mean, it's surprising that there's some really great movie auteurs who could put out all their movies. And actually, right now there's a plethora of free movie and TV stations that have come out on Roku TV. And I'm surprised that people are still paying for Netflix Amazon Prime kind of is a giveaway. It's like a loss leader, but it's surprising. There's so much great content that's free, and it seems to me that would be a challenge to the existing premium model. I guess maybe it's NBC that came out with a model recently that is either free or charging you less, maybe $4 a month or something like that.
Yeah, Peacock.
Peacock, yeah.
So one of the questions from the audience was that there seems to, I think AMC has announced that they're shortening their window for movie premieres. So shorter time from being out at the movie theater to being released. And do you have any thoughts about how it's going to impact? Is it going to impact you at all, or how does it impact film in general if the period of release is less?
It's going from 2.5 months to 2.5 weeks.
From 2.5 months to 2.5 weeks?
Yep.
Matthew, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, all I'll say about that, there's two answers to that. So the benefit of the 2.5 weeks is all the marketing that is done to get a film released in theaters. Usually it's, as you said, 2.5 months till it lands on streamers. So all that marketing you do for that initial burst of that weekend is almost lost, and you have to kind of rejigger the whole thing to get the 2.5 months later on the streamer. So if you shrink it, it's a one-shot marketing plan for a few weeks prior and then a big hit, and that carries over from the box office time for the 2.5 weeks into the date. But what I say, the flip side of that is the more a film is around, the more you hear about it, the better it is. So if it is in theaters for a good 2 months, 2.5 months, the box office numbers are constantly reported. You constantly get articles and critical analysis of your movie over that period of time. People are talking about it. There's word of mouth. That all builds over those 2.5 months. Then the streaming deal, so there's another, say, those things last for a very long time, multiple years on the streaming. So the longer your film exists in the ecosystem, I think the better. I'm always against like the big weekend box office hit and then it's gone the next week. So I like to see a film, marinate and percolate over time, make the box office slowly but surely, get the streaming going. I would prefer a longer time in theaters, and if theaters are going to survive, they're going to need it anyway. But I think, not to go off the subject, but at some point, and Nicola, you might weigh in too. You're an architect, but the theaters, someone should be thinking about building a different kind of movie theater experience that corresponds to more individualized space, but in a collective. So you're kind of like, it's almost like box seating in a sense where, that could exist and people will love that. It's equivalent to a drive-in, but it's indoor and it's still isolated, but it still feels communal. something will happen along those lines.
I wholeheartedly support what you say in terms of the movie theater experience. And we at Myra, we are also complete movie buffs and love the theatrical experience, of course. There's nothing that can beat it. So ideally, the window hopefully will not shorten, although because of the pandemic, you know, that kind of broke this whole strategy loose. But I just saw somewhere in Italy, I believe that there is a movie theater called the Visionario, and it's a hybrid between a hospital and a movie theater, where you have enormous seats which protect you from your neighbors, and textiles which are antibacterial. So I think only the Italians would come up with something like this to preserve the movie-going experience.
Sure. That makes sense, but only little, because as we know, Google just announced yesterday that they're going to have the office shut down till July of next year, which will prompt all the rest of the companies here in the Valley also to shut, probably like Facebook and Salesforce and whatever. Then that follows the whole idea of the movies, pretty much, and having AMC being in the difficult spot right now in the bankruptcy proceedings. I'm not sure. I mean, the whole experience will probably be reinvented. But I wanted to touch something with Matthew. I was a fan, and actually one of my friends who co-founded a company called Fandor, and that was very that was the company that actually specialized in all of the documentaries and better movies from Europe or all over the world. Unfortunately, they wound up. I think that they went under, even though that were initially very well funded. And have you ever had experiences with such platforms like that were very specific for the documentary and that were streamers?
Well, I know Criterion. They broke out their own after Filmstruck went down. And those are more classic films, but we were entertaining the thought of doing a documentary or two with them. I don't know. I mean, the more specific it gets, the more I feel like, you know, the return is smaller and smaller, and the audience, you know, gets really, really tiny. I'm in favor of these bigger streamers with these bigger audiences because I think, you know, you get a wide swath of audience possibility. But, you know, if it gets really small, you know, I just feel like the audience numbers are going to keep falling. I mean, documentaries don't depend on a huge audience anyway, but it just seems to me like some of these more specific things, I'm not surprised it went under, because you really have to have great marketing behind your endeavor. I mean, Netflix got marketing just based on their subscriber growth. It just kept getting reported on how big they got. You know, Disney's doing the same thing. Like every time they release something, there's another 5 or 10 million people up there. So it seems to me like, you know, those kind of marketing behind the streamers is what's needed. And, you know, now they're leading the stock market as far as some of these companies and what they're doing. So it's kind of like built-in marketing for them. I like to see that, and I like to match up my content with that, because I think any filmmaker doing any kind of content today needs to always think, where is this going to be distributed? How am I going to make money for investors? At the same time, have fun doing this and have a passion for it, because both have to sync up. If you just have a passion for it and get investors in there, and you don't have a plan or a thought as to what kind of audience is built in for it, I think it's, you know, it's a foolish thing, because you're spending 2-3 years of your life on these things, and you want to make sure everyone's happy at the end. And, you know, we've had winners and losers, but overall, people are happy with the film because there was a lot of, you know, patience and forethought, and then money and, you know, execution that, you know, paid off.
So just to continue on, I wanted to ask you specifically, all of the film markets, like Nipcom has just announced that they're not going to be this year. And then actually when you have the project, right, when you have the documentary in your hand that is finally in the can, do you do like a Zoom calls to your existing potential distributors? Or what is going on right now in the film industry as far as like marketing to the distributors of the projects that you have? Like American Film Market is not going to be here. MIPCOM just announced they're not here. How do you deal with the situation?
I mean, I'm personally for docs, I don't rely on those conferences as much, but as far as how we dangle our carrot for distributors and for, you know, those kind of companies, I always look at it like it's going to sell in 3 different ways. Press release, you know, and get it out there, you know, before we even start shooting, and test the marketplace, because you can see the comment board, you can see what generated, you know, as far as people calling and the interest level on it. And some of them get picked up from that. And there's the sizzle reel you do when you might have enough content shot where you can create a trailer or a 4 or 5 minute piece that makes, you know, a good representation of what the film will be. You send that around, you see what might happen, or you hold your cards because you think you have something great, and you know you can sell it when the feature is completed, and you have full confidence that you're going to sell for a higher number when that thing is ready to go. Because if you sell it early, you get them weighing in, get them, like streamers or whomever the studio is, get them weighing in on what the final cut will be. If you wait and do your final cut, you can kind of hold true to what that final cut is and say, no, that's it, take it as it is. And, you know, you can probably get a higher number for it and also retain the creative, you know, impulse that you had from the beginning. So those are the 3 ways I see, you know, getting stuff out there. And that's easy to do now because of Vimeo and like putting things around quite quickly. You don't have to like send a DVD or anywhere or anything like that. So there's a benefit to this technology as far as getting our stuff around. Just even with the Academy, you know, now it's all streaming as far as getting, you know, consideration for that stuff. So it used to be you have to spend thousands on DVDs. So I'm really happy about that. That mechanism has made it like really quick and easy.
So Nikki, tell me, in a subject decisions on the content of what subjects you're going to be spending your next projects. How does that work? Is it coming? It's solicited by outside, or you have enough of the creative group internally that helps you out to make those decisions?
So we really have both, because we produce ourselves, but we also executive produce. And I would say that one of the important criteria is to be really sensitive to the zeitgeist. And I can give you an example with, in 2017, we were asked to executive produce a film, Call Me By Your Name. It eventually then you know, got nominated for several Oscars and BAFTAs, et cetera, but at the time in 2017, our group thought that this film was ready for the marketplace. And it was just a question also of zeitgeist. And, but at the time, nobody wanted to take on that risk. So we really stood there alone, and we did take on the risk. And accordingly, I should also point out that at Myra, we have a very distinct philosophy, and that philosophy is to invest in nonviolent content. Actually, 2 philosophies. One is to invest in nonviolent content, and the other one is to invest in international content. We're very, very focused on international content. All of our projects are diverse and from different countries and from different cultures. So, so that I would say are the major criteria.
Okay, actually, Arthur, can I just jump in here 1 second? I have another question for Nikki. So, Nikki, we're seeing a lot more, I guess, Netflix. Netflix is in every country, and they produce a lot of content in other countries. And we're seeing more of the content they're producing being dubbed and put into English. Like, I think I've seen 3 different TV shows that were German that are dubbed in English now. They don't have subtitles anymore, they're just dubbing them. Do you think that's going to be the wave of the future? That because there's, you know, the American content is kind of limited in scope, that there'll be more content coming from overseas to show more scope, different perspective, et cetera?
I think so. I think that's a very interesting trend, and that's a trend that we are very open to. And I mean, you can see it also in our, what I explained before when I mentioned Fairy Tale Forest. Fairy Tale Forest is a TV series that really addresses different countries and different cultures, and introducing different countries to different cultures. And I think that with what's going on in the world, that's the way of the future. It's diversity, it's learning about other cultures, it's being global.
Well, in the old days, we used to have like a foreign movie theater, and you know your dad would pack you all up in the car and you'd go see your foreign movie every 6 months or so. You know, so now you can just watch it on Netflix. So
Yeah.
yep, Arthur.
So good. And actually, Ted Saveros, he became the content guy. Ted is actually as co-CEO right now of the whole company, which will be interesting because he's de facto the most powerful person. He's the one that ventured in Netflix into the content creation and original content production. So I think since Netflix has such a global reach, I mean they're going to definitely cross collateralize a lot of their content that they're producing, especially for the ethnic groups that, you know, some of the Asians that can see their shows here in the States and vice versa. So it's getting really interesting in that area. So do we have any questions from the audience? Marty?
We had some, but I think we've answered them all. Maybe we can get some closing statements, perspective on what we should be looking for the next 6 to 18 months, and you know, when our movie's going to be back in full gear, you guys think? Production, etc.
Should I go
Matt,
ahead?
Nikki, why don't you go?
Yeah, okay. Well, so obviously the production is a very interesting question, and that is totally tied to insurance. And for us, for Myra, again, I think we're in a good position because this morning, the UK government announced that there would be a $647 billion fund for an insurance fund to help the film industry, and I think that will help production in the UK. And and today as well, it was announced that one of the films that the BBC and we are co-producing, Benediction, is going to have cameras rolling in September. So we're looking forward to that. Obviously, we're very excited, but it will be determined on a case-by-case basis. I don't think we will be ready right now to produce in the US, but the world is open.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that you know, I'm about to start production in August on a documentary, and it hasn't really paused us at all because we have like very limited crews, and you know, we're able to, you know, insure to a point because we don't have actors, and you know, we don't even have, it's considered a day player in the feature world, so it's like one interview subject that we can keep clear of and just point a camera at and interview. So, and we do a lot of Zoom interviews too. So, you know, we're not really missing a step in our production, so we're kind of, you know, all systems go. However, the theatrical, you know, as far as my opinion on that, I think it's going to match up with what Broadway is going through. And, you know, if Google has any kind of, you know, predictor on when people are going to be back to normal, maybe it's July next year, I don't know. School's out, you know, who knows? But it's sad because that's the driver. People are realizing that's the cultural driver of, you know, New York and, you know, just around the world. And content is showing how important it is. So we got to get it back. Whether it's theatrical like we knew, I don't know. I think there's an opportunity for people to step in and kind of re-engineer the whole thing. You know, those Broadway theaters are 100 years old, some older than that. So maybe there's time for a change in how that's presented. Maybe there's an opportunity there.
Steve, any thoughts?
Well, I'll piggyback on to Matt. I mean, I think that we have a business that is cost effective in terms of the way we do it, the filming, the interviewing and whatnot. We have a pretty good investor base. We have a pipeline of several projects in different stages of development, and our cost structure is right sized, so to speak. So we're not as concerned about it, and we do have enough diversity, whether it's Taubman or Rockwell or Pakula or Mackey. These are all things that Matt has really carved a niche into, and we've got it in production line, and it's very easy to flip a switch and go interview people, right? So, I mean, it's not that challenging, but the idea is, okay, in that environment, if you can't get them in the theaters, how can we work on the streamers? How can we do it in the next 6 months as opposed to the next 18 months?
Yeah.
Well, Arthur?
Yeah, I just want to say from like a Silicon Valley point of view, there's a lot of exciting new technologies like the one that I mentioned that hopefully will be enabling this better experience at home. And then, you know, the televisions, unfortunately, it's all private, but with the nicer television sets, I mean, it's not a big screen, but then if you can have like your custom tailored content, maybe, you know, it's not going to be as bad in terms of you know, personal satisfaction per se for viewing any of those features. So I'm very hopeful that we will come up with something really good, and then really appreciative that that the great panel that we had today is actually creating the topmost documentaries. And it's kind of wild because I'm a big consumer of documentaries, and I've learned recently about those great films that Matthew and Nikki were producing. So I'm enjoying my evenings right now, actually watching them. And then I promise I will not butcher any more names. My excuse is that I came here when I was 18, so I never lost my accent from Poland. And then sometimes it's hard for me to those French mixed in words. They're
it's a beautiful accent, Arthur. Don't worry about it. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Great job. And we're going to wrap it up now. But again, thanks so much. We're going to be back on August 18th. We've got a luncheon with private equity firms and family offices with dry powder looking to invest in lower middle market private equity companies. And then we'll be back with a family office forum. We think it's going to be in New York, but maybe it'll be in New York or Los Angeles come September. So again, thanks so much, folks, and have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
Well, it is really something to do it